John Heim from the great state of Florida. How's it going, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. You know, times changing, as they say, and here we are in Florida, broadcasting with you guys through various parts of the country. Do thank you guys for bringing me on such an important topic.
Yeah, you are. So we had a tragedy. Let's just talk about it. I just learned of it today. Fill, fill us in. What happened?
Well, we had a new waterkeeper. His name was Cody Pierce, and he's on the job for about a year, and was certainly getting pressured. Like any waterkeeper would get. And then out of nowhere, we received words that Cody had committed suicide. And to further that, there's a lot of speculation out there that maybe it wasn't suicide, or if it was suicide, maybe the powers that be got to him. So our deepest condolences to him, his family, his friends, the Calusa Waterkeeper tribe, the people that are activists and advocates alike. We lost a tremendous leader in our clean water movement. But with that said, I'd like to say we're not dejected. We're a little depressed about death, but we can move on. So what we're doing is retooling this clean water movement and, homage to Cody. And we're looking to go much more aggressive as a result. You can't kill one of our own or drive them to suicide without us clean water advocates and activists alike responding. So the people I've been talking to, it's time to come out even more aggressive.
So it sounds like you don't really think that it was self-inflicted.
Well, I can only speculate, I don't know. The autopsy says it was a suicide. And, we have to believe in that. And the people on the inside that have been pressured by these entities such as U.S. Sugar, Mosaic, and those people with power, we wouldn't put it past them because they've done it time after time after time. I'll give you an example. I worked in my young years with a young lady named Joanne Finney, who mysteriously burned in a house fire for no reason. And it was linked to Big Sugar.
So what was Cody doing that would have made Big Sugar want to get rid of him?
Well, I wouldn't say it was just Big Sugar. And, it was more like what Cody's doing as a waterkeeper is a threat right off the bat. Cody's a very outspoken person. At the same time, he has a very calm demeanor. But make no mistake, when it comes to this job of waterkeeper, Calusa Waterkeeper, you're going to create enemies. And that's just a part of the job.
So how did he create? First of all, I'm the biggest conspiracist on the planet. I always think the worst. How do they? I'm sure it's easy to target him if he's outspoken and vocal, but what do they do, and what do they hope to gain from it? Because there's an old saying: whenever you kill one guy, another guy just walks up and takes the place and resumes the role.
Well, I think people like these people who hold the power. Again, I'll say their names: Mosaic and Big Sugar and development and cattle industry folks and all the way through. They look at it like if we can kill the messenger, then we can kill the message. So what their hopes are is the clean water movement will implode by something so tragic.
It is intimidating.
But
for others,
like I led in this conversation is all it's done is reinvigorated us and coming out stronger. We're not afraid of these people. We've been at this a long time. As a matter of fact, if it's going to be where they killed them or it was suicide related to the pressures of the job, that's just making us more aggressive. And we're going to meet them head on in the path, And if anything, it's more strong now than ever because now we got reason to fight even harder.
So, Wanda, you were telling me earlier today that there's something, some of the records that are not public, or they've been scrubbed or something. Can you fill me in on that or remind me of that?
I'm not sure which record you're
Of
referring to.
Cody's passing.
Oh no, I couldn't find anything about it. Actually,
Is there any way to turn the
I
volume
just
up a
read.
little more?
Am I? Can you not hear me very
Yeah,
well?
hold the
Get a
mic up to your mouth. You got to hold the mic up to your mouth, Wanda. Remember that one there. You got to kind of hold it there. Wanda's
Okay.
$7 microphone. It's wonderful.
No, it was twice that much, Tim.
Okay, so repeat the question. I want to stay on track.
Oh, I was commenting about what I was trying to find out about Cody, what happened, and I didn't know he committed suicide. I didn't find that out till today, but I know he worked so hard at his goals of helping to clean up the Florida waterways, and he had so many plans. And I know for 2025, I mean, he was just a light burning to make a difference in the Florida environment. And when I heard about him passing, I thought, oh my gosh, and so today it took till today for me to find out. And I was told that he had committed suicide. And my first thought was, people with purpose don't kill themselves. So I was kind of like, it was hard to believe. Anyways, and I
Well,
don't
sure, it's
know
hard to
any of the
believe, but
circumstances.
let's put it this way. Who's asking? And when I mean that, who's asking is maybe it's par for course. We have a long history of people being intimidated and basically vanishing and taken hostage and electrocuted. So, Cody, I think, was just another victim of standing up for clean water, and the powers that be see the momentum that he was creating and by all costs want to stop him. And that's speculation. Maybe there's underlying issues like depression or who knows what. But, it just seems very odd to me that such a strong, outspoken man would suddenly commit suicide right in the middle of his tenure as Calusa waterkeeper.
Do you think he would?
And we have to remember he was in and on the polluted water. I mean, we know there's neurotoxins in that water, very powerful poison, kills all the fish, and among other things, he was in on the poison water, breathing it, etc.
So, John, do you think that he was onto something? That he had gotten onto a trail, some trail of evidence, or some real damning thing? Do you think he's, got onto a trail?
I mean, let's be honest. This job entails all trails. So the job requirements are to follow trails and rabbit holes and expose. And the biggest thing they were doing recently was creating policy and getting it to the state legislators and such like that. So, of course, the people on the other side of the fence, they're seeing that. So, between him and John Cassani and the Calusa waterkeepers, they were introducing incredible bills and legislation to the state government and getting it through almost to the point where Big Sugar will put the kibosh on it. But don't think for a minute that, Big Sugar's looking at it like we may have stopped them when it comes to legislate type style, but they also look at it like there's retribution to be paid. You got to understand, U.S. Sugar is a Cuban mafia, and you have another group called U.S. Sugar, which is very much as ruthless as the others. And it's a long history. If you mess with them, you're going to get your due. So I find it not surprising. I'm saddened by it, but it should not stop people from speaking up. There's never been a more time to say, hey, we need to be more aggressive, because there's only two things in this world, love or fear. And the last thing you want, just because of Cody's passing, is to buy in fear and have everybody go by the wayside because they're too afraid to step up against these powerful entities. Me, for one, I'm getting reinvigorated. I told you last time that I was pretty much laying low. That's all squashed. I'm going full blast at this point.
Yeah, good to hear,
So,
John.
what are you going to do? What's your next step? What can we do to help, or what can people do to help?
Well, let's put it this way. Information will be out. One thing I've learned through my 25 years is I'm not going to broadcast it out now what I'm doing, because this is an element of surprise. If you ever read the book, The Art of War, that's our tactic. If they think we're small, then we're big. If they think we're big, then we're small. So we plan on using the art of war to take on these corporations. We also plan on using our lawyers and, policy makers. So once again, we're getting back into grassroots activism with people like Klopf Waterkeeper, which are legitimate organizations, and working with legislators and looking to get laws passed.
So, Wanda says something, or forgive me if I don't have this all clear, that DeSantis recently rejected a bill that was put forth. Does that ring a bell with either one of you guys?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, it seemed like I heard or read in the last 24 hours that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, had recently vetoed a bill. It was about water.
Yeah.
You guys...
And so many more. DeSantis is going far as to outlaw protesting. So that means if we're clean water activists and line a bridge like we did in the old days, we can very easily be prosecuted. And we're not talking about disturbing the peace. We're talking about being labeled eco-terrorists. So these are examples that DeSantis is putting the clamps on. Just another example. We had some people here in Cape Coral, Florida, that were fighting something called the Chiquita Lock. And, they took it into a lawsuit realm. One of DeSantis' new rules was if you lose, then you, as the environmental group, have to pay for the polluters' court fees and their damages. So they're putting the clamps on us and making it very incredibly hard to progress as opposed to the old days. And even the old days were incredibly hard. But with that said, we have to be reinvigorated. Like if you truly believe in something, these aren't going to stop us. It goes back to Martin Luther King on his marches. It was no big deal for these people to go to jail to prove their point. And if that's what it takes for us, that's what we're going to do. I mean, we're going into civil disobedience mode. We plan on using very aggressive tactics all the way down to protesting, chaining ourselves to locks, and, taking an approach to where we're willing to go to jail and get public publicity and public publicity to get it out there. And the world needs to see what's happening here in Southwest Florida.
Well, I mean, the whole thing that if they made it a law or a provision that you have to pay legal fees, I've been on that side of that deal before. And, those guys can rack up $50,000 a day. Easy. Get a big old law firm, silk stocking, a couple of jets. Yeah, that's easy. 20 grand, 50 grand a day. And, you can end up with a $17 million.
I suggest all your viewers look up and Google something called the Chiquita Locks Battle in Cape Coral, Florida, where it's exactly what we're talking about. 3 individuals, 2 of them were Klopf waterkeepers, are now facing this incredible plight, So we need to rally behind them and, even threaten with jail if they can't come up with the money.
Right. So it really takes the state to be able to fund something like that. I mean, so DeSantis is either going to be with them or against them.
Well, DeSantis is going to not be with us activists. DeSantis looks at people who stand up for clean water are what he calls woke.
What about RFK Jr.? Where's he coming to this? What do you think he's
Well,
going
that's
to?
remains to be seen, right? Let's be honest. RFK Jr. is the leader of the Waterkeeper Alliance. So he's now up there on a prestigious national level. And we're all waiting to see what he's going to do when it comes to clean water legislation.
How can you influence him? What are your tools that you have available to you for that?
Well, I mean, you know, what we have to do is lobby him. We have to get up there and speak with him, whether it's relentless emails, whether it's relentless phone calls to his office, demanding through a scheduler, you know, in D.C. that we have meetings with him to let him know. But again, repeat, after all, he is our boss when it comes to the Calusa Waterkeeper program. He is the one who started the Waterkeeper program nationally. So it's in his best interest to follow through with the advocates and activists and organizations that are very much professional and implement standards for clean water. But that remains to be seen.
Is there any way that sugar, or let's call it big sugar, or you guys keep calling it that, can they do something to stop causing so much damage? And I know Mosaic.
Sure, they can. I mean, that's a great question, but the rudimentary answer is, you know, yes, they can. But what comes into play? Greed. They don't want to. They have every responsibility, opportunity. I mean, there's a thing called drip irrigation, right? Maybe you're familiar with it. It would cost U.S. Sugar or the Fangul brothers at Florida Crystals about 6 months of profit. They're not willing to let that go. But in the long term, drip irrigation would actually, you know, reduce, if not eliminate, these pollution problems we're dealing with. Because they're not dealing the chemicals that they're used to dealing with for 100 years.
So how many acres of sugar is there in Florida? How many acres are we talking about? How many
Hundreds
people?
of miles. Hundreds of miles, major conglomerate corporations. They are...
Couple 100,000, I think.
They are subsidized
I think
by
there's
the
a
U.S.
couple
government.
thousand.
They are protected.
Sure.
They are able to...
Yeah.
The only company in the world that's able to switch from food to, you know, sugar, which is whatever it is, medicine or whatever the hell they want to call it. But so they have that luxury to always say, you know, we're not poisoning anything. We're growing food.
Right.
And when's the last time you ever heard sugar as food? But the U.S. government recognizes them that way, where they can shift back and forth. And the bottom line is, you know, U.S. Sugar don't care about one thing, and that's the bottom line profit.
Yeah, I think the sugar subsidies started back in World War II, and they've just continued to get stronger and stronger, if I recall correctly.
And then
Yeah,
you go into Mosaic. You go into Mosaic, and they're a Fortune 500 company that makes big sugar look like a dwarf. So we're dealing with an incredible amount of sugar production and, you know, disregarding their waste into the Caloosahatchee River down the, you know, estuaries. And then we have Mosaic, who's dealing with radioactive and uranium, pumping it down the Peace River and the Mayaca River. And to be honest with you, we're talking about a good 300 to 500 miles of rivers being absolutely destroyed by chemical waste being dumped in it, unchecked, unguarded, and all the way down to our coastal communities. Some of these rivers, like the Caloosahatchee, lead right into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's been proven cyanobacteria is one of those products. It's a human health concern, which causes ALS and mental degeneration. And, you know, don't need to explain much about uranium and plutonium in the water. That should be pretty obvious.
So let's go back to Cody. What kind of, how can you frame this up? You know, where he was in his life. When was the last time you talked to him? How did they discover him? What are the alleged causes? Because that sounds kind of sketchy to me.
I'll cut to the chase with it, like in a real simple, rudimentary answer. Cody falls into the same world as a Robin Williams. You never seen it coming. And then when it came, it was a shock to the community because it just didn't make sense. He was an upbeat fellow. He was always well spoken. He always shook hands and very cordial. And it seemed like he was very confident. So all of a sudden, the man's dead. And maybe it's one of those cases where we didn't know something about his depression or the pressure he was getting and probably just couldn't handle it anymore.
No, I think we'll find out more at a later date about all of this, if there is anything suspicious or if it was truly a suicide.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
John, do you think it's suspicious? I mean, what do you? It smells like a rat to me from,
well, to
quite a
all
way.
it smells like. I try to stay optimistic, and maybe there was other problems, but I'll never know. There'll be an autopsy out, and it'll just say suicide. But the propaganda and the conspiracy continues. How did he really die? We'll never know. My personal opinion is people who are the head of the collusive waterkeeper with so much, prestige and love by our community don't just commit suicide. I believe something happened from the interior of people who have power.
Yeah.
So what did he leave behind? A family, children, wife?
Yeah. I mean, quite a few family members and a community who loved him. Matter of fact, next weekend is a celebration of life at the Broadway Palm Dinner Theater. All are welcome to pay respects to a great man who stood up for water quality and then some. So we encourage everybody to be out there to pay their respects, but it's a tragic loss.
It is. So we can put a link down below where people can contribute to the survivors, his wife and family. I presume he was married. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume that.
But at the same time, I like to say, even with Cody's death, we're determined. We're not going to slow down. If anything, we're going to rev it up. Part of my French, but we're pissed. And all that did was motivate us. So all that did was motivate us. And if they think they had a problem on their hands in the past, these entities that have power and pollute our waters, they got another thing coming. We're coming out strong.
Well, where can people contribute? And how do they make their dollars help you continue your battle?
Well, that's an easy one. I mean, donate to the Collusive Waterkeeper program. Look it up. And, give all your financial support and condolences to them. I run a group called the Southwest Florida Clean Water Movement, where the donations will not do me any good other than giving them back over to the Collusive Waterkeeper.
Right. Well, we'll put a link down below so people can click right onto it and make those contributions when they need to or when they get ready to. Well, we want to help. And that's what we're trying to do this show for, to make people be aware and have the opportunity to at least even hear things like this. Because otherwise, people can't hear it. It's not written, it's not printed, it's not published. And that's why we started the show. Right. Well, I admire that, and I think the whole world admires it as well. Uh, Thanks for coming on the show. I know you're kind of on a short schedule. Wanda's on a short schedule, but John, I would love you to be on here all the time. We have a lot of guests that are talking about the same thing, but from slightly different angles, which I think is important because nobody can really stitch it all together unless they fly at 30,000 feet and stitch it all together. So that's what we're trying to do. Right. Well, right. And I just kind of want to point out one thing. There's the whole health and human safety aspect of it, and our kids' health and our grandkids' health and all that. But there's also a economic reality. I mean, the cost or the value of these condos and these docks and just the whole water industry and tourist industry, those guys ought to care as much about their checkbook as they do about their health. Well, that's a few
Yeah.
yeah, that's a few zeros. So everybody ought to care, whether you're the hot dog guy or the fishing dock guy or the hole cleaner guy. I mean, boat mechanics, they're all impacted by this. When they stop coming, dollars tend to stop as well. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where I would like to try to make a difference, to get all of these different factions of the society to be aware that this costs us all a lot of money. It costs money. It doesn't cost that much. Go ahead. Right. Is there any way that you see that the big sugar or the big uh, potash miners could work in a positive way, cooperatively, to maybe change a couple of settings on the knobs, but be able to continue to operate with less damage? If you could, can you could, can you visualize how that would might happen? Yeah. How much? How do they irrigate the sugar otherwise if they're not using drip irrigation? Is it like broadcast, big? Yeah. Right. 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 That's interesting. Well, right. And what do they do with it? Just spending on a local county level for playgrounds and baseball diamonds, or do they put it in their own pocket? Well, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me. I think that it's a two-fronted war at least. One is you can go to Tallahassee and you can go to all the counties and all the sheriffs and all the different water keepers. But two, you can make the people aware. I have a hunch that most people have not a single clue about what's going on. They're just blindly living in their. No, I agree. And that's why that's my mission is to reach out to all these, to reach out to the ears and eyes in this internet thing, which I'm just now learning how to do, but it's pretty powerful. All right. No, I'm not. Right. I mean, the butterfly causes the tidal wave. All right, Wanda, do you have anything else? I'm going to let John go. I know he's busy. This is a ad hoc thing. I'm really sorry about your loss with your fellow waterkeeper. Keep us posted. Do a little.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Level, we get
Okay.
off. And
Sounds
John, I'll
great.
call you in about 20 minutes. I got to grab something to eat. But I want to click
Yeah.
off right now. Is
Let's follow up.
that cool? And I'll call you back in
Okay.
a little bit, and
Thanks.
we'll talk about how we package this up. Say again? No. I was going to call you on the phone. I'll call you on. All right, and we'll talk about the next step here. Okay? All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
See you.
John.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tim.
I'll call you in a little bit, Wanda. I'm going to leave the studio. But I'm going to leave it on for. Yeah, John, leave yours on for a little bit so it downloads.